Hi, my name is Hope DeSuze, and I'll be explaining to you our code portion for our final project. So again, our goal for the project was to see which words to include in YouTube videos to garner the highest average view count. So first I'll look into this CSV file, the data set we're looking at. This is CA videos, so these are all the top viewed YouTube videos in Canada. This was collected over a series of months where there were 20 videos collected a day. And this data set includes a lot of information, video ID, trending date, etc., etc. But we only really need the title and the view count. So our first step with this data set before importing our libraries is to traverse through the data set. But before I go through that, I'll explain to you the libraries that we use. So this first one is import CSV. This is our way to traverse, open, and write CSV files. And then I have these libraries, NLTK, which stands for Natural Language Toolkit. So this contains functions to tokenize words and also all these stop words in English, like while and for or. All of these stop words are included there. I also have a function called collections, and I use this function counter. And counter is a good way for us to increment dictionaries easily. And I also have this library that we didn't utilize in class called langDetect. And I use this library to detect if the language is in English. My logic behind this is that if the title of the YouTube video is entirely in a different language, we might miss a couple stop words for that language. So I wanted this code to be able to be utilized for all types of CSV files that aren't just YouTube videos in English. So the Kaggle data set that we were given, it includes more than just Canada and US. It also included Mexico and Japan and Korea. So I wanted to make sure that we only take into account English words, so that, let's say, in Korea, I would assume that the top trending Korean YouTube videos would be in Korean, which means that we might take into account Korean words like is and a, and I didn't want that to be a part of our calculation. So to simplify everything, I only took into account titles that are completely in English. So that's the reason for this library. Okay, so I mentioned before, our first step after importing all the libraries is to traverse through the input file. So we're traversing through CA videos. So this is the way we do it. We open it as an in file, we have a reader, and then we also have a new file called titles and views. So we will take all the contents that we actually need from CA videos, and we're going to put it in titles and views. I mentioned this before, but the data set that we have is so large, you could see that it exceeds almost 40,000 entries. So because of this, we decided to utilize VS Code instead of Python Jupyter, because traversing this data set was just really difficult using another IDE. So I used Visual Studio Code. So to kind of combat visualizing our code that Visual Studio lacks and Jupyter has, I made sure that every time we cleaned the data set, we included the cleaned results in a CSV file. Okay, so we're pre-processing, we are traversing to CA videos, and then we're only taking the title and view information into account. So only the title and view is being written in this file called titles and views. And you can see that here once it loads. So this is title and views. It has a header. And this is the title of each video. And then after the comma is the view count of each video. And you could see here, this is the second row and this is the seventh row because this is, if we look back at CA videos, the title and view is the second and seventh row. If I could just scroll back up. Right. Okay. See, this is the title, 0, 1, 2, second index, and view is the seventh index. Great. Okay. So now I have title and views, which is all of the data from CA videos, but only the title and views. And now you'll see there's a lot of non-English titles, like this one, for example. I think this is Korean, I'm not completely sure. But we don't want to include things like that. So this section of the code only takes into account English videos, and we remove non-English videos. So I have printed out in standard output what videos we didn't include because they weren't in its entirety in English. And every title that was not valid would be put in the CSV file called only English. So again, we have like a similar process where we open title and views as an input file. We have a reader, and we have this thing next reader. That's because I want to skip the header. I also do that here. So obviously, if we look back at titles and views, the first row is title and views, which we don't want to take into account because that's not data that we need to kind of traverse through. So here I have an empty list of all the English titles so that I could populate that list. And then for each row, we're going to detect. So here is a function detect that I got from this library, lang detect. And it's saying that we're going to try to see if the language is in English. And if it is, we append it to the row. Otherwise, I decided to print out the rows that aren't valid. So these are the rows that weren't valid. And that's because lang detect, the library, Python library that I use, it doesn't understand Ethiopian. So if you look at the lang detect documentation, it accepts Polish and Korean and Japan. I'll include it in the PowerPoint for reference. But all of these titles are in languages that lang detect doesn't understand. So that's why they aren't included when we do our calculations. And if you look at only English, there are some titles that are included. Like, for example, this one, Game of Hunting, and then some foreign language characters. These are included because there is some English inside the title. I wanted to take into account those words. All right. So after we've traversed through title and views and eliminated all the non-English words, and this step really does take a long time, we are now ready. Oh, and this is what writes the non-English or the only English words in the CSV file. Now we're ready to actually go through our natural language processing. So my process here is I'm going to loop through each title and tokenize each word. And we have to clean the data a little bit more in that we have to remove the stop words, we have to remove the punctuation, and then we start our process where we do the bag of words, where we collect the frequency of each word and their view count, and then we take the average of their associated view count, and then whichever words have the highest average view count we'll take into account. So I'll run through this. Again, we open the only English CSV, which is this file that we saw here. And then we're going to have a reader, and we're going to have a total views of 0 and a word count. It's going to be an empty dictionary. And then we're going to use stop words equals set stop words English. So again, stop words, this is initialized in the NLTK, and these are all the English stop words. So now we're going to throw through each row, and we're going to find the views in each row. And we're going to get an accumulation of all the views, and then we're going to tokenize the words. I also have this function dot lower, so that we can lowercase each word so that we would take into account, like, for example, if egg was one of the trending words, capital EGG would have the same view count as lowercase egg. And then here, this is a for loop. If the word is lowercase, we're also doing this. If word is alpha. So that eliminates all of the punctuation. So now we have only words, all lowercase, all without punctuation. Okay. So now this for loop, it removes all the stop words from the list of words. So if the word that was tokenized is a or while or upon, all of these words are stop words and they will be removed from consideration. And then finally, I'm going to take into account their view total. So for word and words, we're going to say if word and word count, we're going to increment their views. Otherwise, this word isn't in word count, and we're going to set that equals views. All right, so now we're going to calculate the average view. So that's the total view, and then we're going to print. So here I printed the average views for all videos. So I collect the average views to kind of dictate if the view count is above average or if it's high. So words that are below this average, obviously, they're not guaranteed to get a high view count. But if the words are above the average, how high they are above the average is how we're going to dictate if they're words that will kind of lead to a higher view count. So that's the reason why we have this average views. So I print this. The average views are here, and you can see the average views is this number here, 1140587. And then we're going to go through each top words. So we're going to sort through, and this sorted, we're going to take that from the this collections. Okay, that's a function from collections. So we're going to sort through, and this takes the top 10 saved in word count. So we're going to take the top 10 items in that dictionary, and we initialize word count over here. Where is it? Oh, here. Yeah, it's an empty dictionary right here. All right, great. So now that we've done that, we're simply going to count and print. So I ran this Python code ahead of time simply because traversing through the database, especially the stuff where we're trying to see if the language is in English, it just takes a long time. So I've previously ran it, and this was our result. So this is in descending order. In that official, if you include the word official, it has the highest possibility of being above average. So YouTube titles with the word official, it averaged to be 674353.74 above the average view count, which was this number here. And same with the word trailer, video, HD, music, game, or, versus, full, and infinity. So these were our top words. So these words are most likely to lead to a high view count. And that's our code. Again, every time we cleaned the data, we included it into a new CSV file. Thank you.